After university, Jess found a job not in her field, but one that she liked. She was hired as an administrator at a hotel that was part of an elite countryside complex. It had a restaurant with excellent cuisine, a tennis court and sports field, a sauna with a pool, and a parking lot for cars. There was also what they called the highlight. Out of the two hotel buildings, the smaller one was in a log cabin, and every room was infused with the scent of wood, which everyone loved. This was the area of responsibility, and the complex was like a state within a state. The coordination and clarity of all services were the foundation and made the complex popular. It was never empty, neither in winter nor in summer. The good organization of the security service also played a role. Free rooms here were rare. They were usually booked in advance, but there was always a reserve, and Jess paid special attention to that. You never know what situation might arise. Jess managed to keep everything in her sight, and for that, she was valued and respected. Everyone noted her kindness, too. Jess never raised her voice. On the contrary, if she spoke quietly, it meant she had found a flaw in someone's work, and the one at fault would feel ashamed, which is a very effective way to improve the situation. But who wants to feel shame? Such simple techniques helped Jess a lot, and her work didn't burden her. It was necessary for her. Jess had been working here for 3 years already, and not once did the thought arise that she should find some other place. Jess was even satisfied with having to commute out of town. There was nature, peace, no city noise and hustle, which had thoroughly worn her out since she lived right in the center. "But how can you work in the sticks?" her friends asked. "Every day 20 kilometers to the complex and back? At least there's security there. Or what if some teenagers or wild animals show up?" On that account, everything was provided for in the complex. The security service worked around the clock, and in all the time Jess had been there hadn't been a single incident. The security guys patrolled everywhere on the territory. They didn't bother the guests, but with them it was calm. And then one morning, the on-duty guard noticed an uninvited guest. This guest hadn't gone through the checkpoint, probably climbed under the fence. Judging by the torn clothes, it was a homeless bum, and he headed straight to the building where Jess worked. The guard prepared to go help her, but she was already talking to the homeless man, then let this dubious person in rags in and led him into the hotel, even trying to support him so he wouldn't fall as they went up to the second floor. The guard was puzzled. He'd never seen such a client here before. Maybe he's Jess's acquaintance? Hardly, this is clearly a bum. "No, I need to report to the boss." And he went to the manager, told him everything he saw, suggested the manager watch the surveillance camera recording himself. At first, the manager listened skeptically, then watched the recording, and the manager literally lost his temper. This had never happened before. To check in an obvious vagrant, and it was Jess, the administrator, who should prevent such things. After watching the recording to the end, the manager rushed to her office and gave her a dressing down. He'd never spoken to Jess like that before. It wasn't a conversation, but shouting, accusations that she was turning the elite complex into a flophouse for the homeless. Then he said, "You're fired. Your past merits are now just empty words. If you allow yourself to violate our rules, so gather your things. Just tell me in which room this bum is." Jess, who had never been spoken to like that before, didn't know what to say at first. Then she realized the manager wouldn't even listen, so she silently led him to the reserve room. The door wasn't locked. They entered. Nobody. And then from the bathroom, a young man comes out in a hotel robe. The robe is a bit small for him, so on his wrists and ankles, marks from ropes are visible. Probably the guy had been tied up for several days. His face was pale but without bruises. Only his exhausted look wasn't enough to soften the manager. Jess clearly sympathized with the guy, but the manager was already chasing him away angrily, explaining that this wasn't some flophouse. Such guests simply couldn't be here in principle. "So right this minute, out of the hotel, and you too are fired," the manager doesn't say, but growls. Jess is ready to leave right now, but she's stopped by the young man's words. "Give me please 5 minutes. They're already coming for me. I used the phone in the room and called." "They're coming for him," the manager says mockingly. "Maybe a whole escort? Is that how bums travel now? Leave, I told you." "They really are coming for me," the guy says. "Allow me to wait here. I'm without clean clothes and it'll be chilly outside in just a robe." Jess involuntarily steps forward. She wants to speak up in defense of the guy, that she's ready to pay for the room herself, but the manager gestures for them to leave, both of them. Then he condescendingly says to the guy, "Out of the room immediately, in the lobby for exactly 5 minutes. If you don't leave yourselves, security will help." The guy, Jess, and the manager go down to the lobby. He looks expressively at his watch, but then, at the entrance, a tinted SUV stops. People jump out of it and rush to hug the guy. And the manager recognizes one of those hugging the young man is the owner of a large company, a millionaire, influential and well-known in the city and beyond. And he calls the guy in the hotel robe son. The manager realizes what he's just done. The people who entered are already asking where the guy can change. Jess comes to the rescue. She leads them to the same reserve room from which they had been so rudely pushed out a few minutes ago. Before entering, he thanks Jess and explains to his father and the accompanying people that this girl let him into the hotel. The guy's father also thanks Jess. The manager, having somewhat come to his senses, makes an attempt to apologize, but they pay him no attention, and it becomes clear to everyone that the conversation isn't over yet. Especially the manager understands this. He guesses what kind of conversation it will be and what the consequences are. 2 weeks ago, Oliver, the son of this businessman, was kidnapped, and it was done professionally at noon right from the university territory where the young man, after graduate school, began his teaching career. The family accepted his choice. They didn't insist that Oliver continue his father's business. There's still his younger brother. Maybe he'll head the company later. And Oliver was special in the family. Soft in character, kind and responsive, a young man who knew literature perfectly, seemed like a romantic or a lyricist. The father was amazed at how Oliver remembered so many poems and titles and authors. And the mother, who also loved poems, said, "I doubt he'll become a tech guy, and we shouldn't break him." "I'm not going to break him," the father replied to his wife. "Let Oliver choose his work himself. Maybe he'll be lucky and have as wonderful a wife as I do." But Oliver didn't become a lyricist. In high school, he got into computer technologies. When he first disassembled it to the base, the father just threw up his hands. Poor computer, brand new, and now it's dead. And 2 days later, he came out to his wife, who was setting the table for breakfast, and said, "I knew that with parents as smart as us, the kids should be geniuses. But what Oliver did with his computer, he actually remade it, strengthening and expanding everything the manufacturer couldn't. I didn't expect. Maybe now I should address Oliver formally." After school, Oliver went to study in Switzerland. His mother reluctantly let him go there, worried about how her son would be there, far away, alone. But Oliver promised everything would be fine, and besides, on vacations he'd come home, and they with Dad could always fly to him. Oliver surprised his father again when he heard that his son not only knew English, but had already learned French and German in Geneva and spoke all languages confidently. When Oliver returned home with his diploma, the question of his job arose. "Tell me where you'd like to work," the father asked. "I'm not insisting on my company, but I can help. Just decide where you'd like." "Thanks, Dad," Oliver replied. "I'll do it myself. If it doesn't work out, then get involved." But it worked out for him. Oliver was gladly hired to teach at the local university. The rector, pro-rector, and dean talked to him in detail, and Oliver got the go-ahead from all of them. Oliver's work went from the first day. In age, he didn't differ much from the students, but in knowledge and his methodology from reading lectures, the auditoriums where his classes were held were always full of students. Oliver found common ground with the teaching staff too. They knew what family he was from and at first feared that this newbie would be on special terms, but soon they were convinced that the foreign education was earned deservedly. Students even started imitating Oliver and tried to dress like him, introduced some of his jokes into their lexicon, always sharp but not vulgar or offensive. That the students respected him, they don't respect every teacher. Maybe they fear some, even fawn for a grade or exam, but that's different. And they respected Oliver. It was noticeable to everyone. Whether Oliver knew about this is unknown, but at the university he felt in his place. On that day, Oliver had read his lectures and was heading home. It was just a big break. Students came out into the university courtyard and saw that Oliver went to his car. Nearby stood a gray foreign car, very close to Oliver's car, so close that opening the door of his car, Oliver could hit it. In the gray foreign car sat some people. Oliver approached them. This was well seen by the students, said something, probably that his door might hit the foreign car. Immediately, people got out of the foreign car, politely took Oliver by the arms and put him in the back seat. The foreign car immediately drove off. If only the students who saw this had known what it meant. But in confusion, they didn't even remember the car's license plate, only separate digits. Well, some collective image of the foreign car emerged. Only later it turned out that its owner had already written a statement about the theft from his own yard. In fact, it was a kidnapping, and the kidnappers didn't need a university teacher Oliver at all. They needed a lever of pressure on his father. But they could get to him the old way, worked out back in the 90s, to strike at the family, especially painfully at the children. And it all started simply, also like in the 90s. One bandit, now wearing the mask of a businessman, wanted to appropriate the company of Oliver's father, already established with a name and huge turnover. That the company owner wouldn't agree to the bandit roof was already known. Several times they approached with such a proposal. He refused flat out. Well, then they decided to act differently. First, they prepared thoroughly. Find out where the older son frequents. It didn't take much effort. Then a bold plan arose, not to kidnap Oliver from home where there's security and surveillance cameras, but to do it in broad daylight in a crowded place. So the kidnapper's car parked in the university courtyard next to Oliver's car, very close. The calculation was that Oliver would definitely approach them to ask to move. Everything happened exactly like that. And then out of town to an abandoned hunting lodge. That's where they brought Oliver. Hands and feet tied, already bound. They beat him, making sure he stayed conscious, and issued an ultimatum to his father. Either on the appointed day and at the appointed place, he hands over in cash an amount equal to a decent share of his company's value, or he won't see his older son again. And mockingly added that they are civilized people. They won't send the son in parts, so let daddy organize the ransom quickly. The father pulled himself together. There was no guarantee that Oliver would remain safe and sound. Need to decide. Contact the police, or, as these thugs warned, the police shouldn't know anything. Oliver's father did contact the police and did it as secretly as possible. At least, as it turned out later, the kidnapping organizers didn't find out. Honor and praise to the reliable police who are far from all in cahoots with criminals. Then the collection of money began. The father found it, the entire required amount. His partners and old friends helped, and this had to be done so that the bandits didn't find out who gave the money. And every day answer the kidnapper's call, keeping them informed of how the collection was going. Moreover, the connection was one-sided. Only the bandits called, each time from an unknown number. And Oliver lay for almost 2 weeks, bound hand and foot on hay in a wind-blown, forgotten hunting hut. Was he scared? More like anger and rage. He immediately understood that this was how they wanted to get to his father. And then when two in masks started issuing the ultimatum to his father, he no longer doubted. And he was only glad that they wanted to take it out on him and not on his younger brothers. But Oliver gave credit to the bandits. They figured out that kidnapping him from home with security and surveillance cameras was dangerous, but from the university courtyard, just right. If Oliver were asked what he thought about in those days, they probably wouldn't believe him. He recited poems. At first to himself, and when once, after the single daily slop, the bandits forgot to tape his mouth with duct tape, he recited aloud. And you had to see the eyes of those listeners in black balaclavas. They were listening to his poems. Oliver couldn't be wrong about that. He stopped only to take a sip of water. It seemed in this damp hut there shouldn't be thirst, but he wanted to drink, and his hands were tied. And when, to the question of his guards why he stopped, "Come on, perform," he replied that he wanted to drink, they untied one hand, tied the second to his legs. but that was already something. About what would happen to him, Oliver tried not to think. Most often, he thought about his mom. He knew she couldn't find peace, probably wasn't sleeping, and his brother and father were probably rushing around too. Of course they'd rescue him, though the money demanded was astronomical. Oliver found another occupation besides poems. With his free hand, he tore his clothes. He couldn't relieve the itch that covered his whole body otherwise. This hay or straw, probably lying here for years, reacted that way to Oliver being forced to huddle in a small patch. And he tore his pants, shirt, and jacket so much that when some senior bandit came, he gave his guards a dressing down, accusing them of beating Oliver, and the guy must remain unharmed for now. For now, thought Oliver. Only the terms of this for now remained a secret. Did Oliver think about escape? He did, and for the umpteenth time regretted that he didn't know the areas around the city well. They drove him here for about an hour. Exactly, he doesn't know, because in the car they immediately took his phone. And in which direction from the city? But Oliver would try to escape. Running with tied legs and a hand tied to them is unrealistic, but chance helped. In the morning, one of his guards came in and saw that Oliver's ankles were swollen so that they buried the rope that was on them. He called the second guard. They decided to cut the ropes and cut them. "Sit and don't twitch," said one. "Soon finish." Until evening, Oliver exercised his legs, made some movements, then stood up. It turned out he could stand. He looked at the matted hay, started fluffing it, and saw a big hole at the junction of the wall and floor. No wonder it blew from there so much. Then he realized that the gift could help. When his guards were snoring because of it, Oliver started picking at that hole. How much was... Time passed, he didn't know, but it wasn't dawn yet, and the opening was already decent. Through it, Oliver got out of the hut and went, he didn't know where. They ran. He had no strength to run. Oliver decided to orient by the sound of passing cars. Then he could get to the highway, maybe a gas station nearby. And that was right. It wasn't fully dawn yet, and Oliver already saw the highway and cars on his side, a gas station, and thought, here's salvation. But they rudely chased him away, practically pushed him out, and didn't let him call. Meanwhile, more and more cars were arriving at the gas station, and Oliver decided not to risk it. And some instinct told him to go back to the forest, only on the other side of the highway, and go, he doesn't know, but he came out just like that to a countryside hotel complex. Only here, the gates were closed. Oliver went around the fence, saw where he could crawl through, and the forest for a long time. He had no strength. Then he fell, and already on the territory of this complex, he lay down, looked around, the courtyard was empty, and he went to the hotel. He barely entered when a young girl came towards him. Oliver tried to say something to her and almost lost consciousness, and this girl didn't let Oliver fall. She helped him up to the second floor to the room. Oliver asked permission to call. The girl allowed it and said he could wash up, then it'd be easier right away, and gave him a hotel robe, and she herself left the room and went for a snack and coffee. Oliver at first didn't even understand what this girl had done for him. He grabbed the phone and called home. His brother picked up, immediately called Mom. She cried so much, then asked where he was. Oliver read the name of the complex on the robe. "Stay there, son, we're coming now," and Mom hung up. And Oliver went to the shower, and indeed it became easier. It seemed he washed away the hopelessness and the suffocating smell of matted hay and calmed down emotionally a bit. From the shower, Oliver came out hearing that people entered the room, and a male voice was scolding, as Oliver understood, the girl who brought him here. Then they started chasing him away, and that's when his father, mom, and 2 guards from his father's firm arrived. Later, Oliver would learn that his father had already given the ransom to the kidnappers early in the morning, only did everything as agreed with the police. In the case with the money was a tracker. Further, as the technicians say, they found and arrested the extortionists and kidnappers. The investigation is still ongoing, but there are more than enough evidence, as well as a series of similar crimes led by the one who decided to seize the most successful, most profitable companies this way. So this particular story ended, but there was another one. When Oliver finally came to his senses, he started remembering that girl who lost her job because of him.
He told his father, told about how after the gas station where they chased him away, though they saw in what condition he was, Oliver doubted that in this elite hotel they'd help him. And they helped Oliver, or rather the girl administrator helped, and for that she was fired, and Oliver didn't even properly thank her. "Get ready, son," said the father. "We're going there now to sort it out." As soon as they arrived, the manager ran out to them, started apologizing, said it was a misunderstanding. But the father didn't listen to him. He asked if that girl who helped his son was working. The manager had to admit that he fired her, but again, the manager babbled that he didn't know. The father approached him closer and quietly but threateningly said, "You need to go to her and beg her to come back if she wants, and now give her address." The manager turned out to be quick. At what speed, but he got there first. Jess, you can only guess, but he managed to apologize 3 times, begged her to return to work, promising to pay for all non-working days and raise her salary, just let Jess come back. Jess didn't have time to answer him when the doorbell rang. It was Oliver and his father. The manager looked pleadingly at Jess, but how pitiful he was, and Jess said to him, "Okay." He immediately left, bowing to the visitors. Here, Jess learned what had happened to Oliver then. They got to know the girl who broke the rules but remained, as Oliver's father said, human. Then, Jess's guests extracted a promise from her that she would definitely come to visit them. Oliver's mom wants to meet her. She would have come herself, but this story shook her health and the family asks Mom to stay home. While they said this, Jess imagined what this woman had to go through, what the whole family had to go through, not to mention Oliver, and Jess agreed. Oliver had a nice and cozy home, as did all the household members. They were hospitable. They said thank you to Jess so many times that in the end she asked them not to thank her anymore. Oliver went to see Jess off, or rather, they went in his car. They talked for a long time, and Jess noted to herself that they spoke the same language. Oliver didn't show with a single word that he was from a wealthy, well-known family. They talked about books and movies, about how both did a bit of track and field in school, and the car had been standing at Jess's entrance for an hour already. They kept talking and talking. Finally, Jess opened the door, about to say goodbye, but Oliver found a way to detain her. He asked, "Do you know Eugene Onegin?" Jess, from surprise, said, "My uncle of most honest rules," and they laughed together. And then Oliver recited the entire first chapter in one breath. When, on the 3rd anniversary of their wedding, Oliver's brother came with his girlfriend, he asked them during the feast, "Guys, do you have some kind of thing that's only understandable to you? Elizabeth and I have such a thing, and you?" Jess and Oliver looked at each other and said in unison, "Eugene Onegin," but a pause ensued. They had to fill it with the same Eugene Onegin. Only Oliver spared the guests. He didn't read the whole poem or even the whole first chapter, just 12 lines.